in the span of a weekend, in the span of 24 hours, I went from someone who discipline was an incredibly hard thing to do, staying away from the alcohol, staying away from the weed, the video games, the porn, the masturbating, all these things. It had to be this conscious day-to-day fight, battle to stay away from, to immediately being like, oh, I no longer need these things.
Wow.
I have no desire. I was raised above desire, that I transcended my vices.
Cameron, welcome to the podcast.
Danny, thank you for having me.
Dude, you have changed my life because you have shown me what it looks like to embody unconditional love and to do that so quickly. You have gone from not having unconditional love and on the precipice of it to having it, and to be able to witness that transformation take place was the most beautiful thing that I've ever experienced. So, and then you're able to put it all into words and explain it in a way that really resonates and hits people at a deep level. And so, first of all, thank you so much for being you and doing the work needed to heal yourself so you can heal the world.
This is going to be an emotional podcast, isn't it? Yeah, as it should be. Danny, that is all received. And I just want to say thank you so much for saying that. I also want to say that happened because of you. And you set up the space for me to feel that way, for me to finally give myself unconditional love, and then now equipping me with everything necessary to give that to the world. And I feel like I met an angel when I met you. And I've known you for a long time, a full, 5 days? 6 days?
Personally, in the flesh.
In the flesh?
Yeah.
And I already know you're my brother in ways that I can't even describe. And you have done more for me in these 6 days. That, and this rarely happens, I'm just left speechless. And like I said in the car ride over here, it makes me so excited for the next 70 years. If we're 6 days in, bro, oh my gosh, are you kidding me?
So tell people the story of what happened when you met Al.
Oh man, okay. So I was at this place called Lizard Yoga here in Austin. I was getting ready for a class. I arrived about 10 minutes early. For some reason, I'm like, you know what? I usually walk there. I live pretty close. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to get a little bit early and I'm going to go into their meditation room and just hang out, kind of prepare before the class. I walk in. I see this blonde girl in the corner. She's obviously writing something on her phone. Just said, hey, hello. Nice to meet you. I'm Cameron. Just let her kind of go back to writing. But then something inside me was like, I need to talk to this woman. And so I'm like, well, hey, what's she writing? You know, part of me was like, don't talk to her, let her do her thing. But the other part of me, which is thankfully louder, said, you got to make this happen. So long story short, that conversation turned from what would have been like 10 minutes before the class started to 3 hours. And she immediately kind of walked over to where I was sitting on the couch lounge area. And we just talked about everything. I talked about that I just moved to Austin a few weeks prior. And I happened to mention your name. I don't know, somehow, I don't know why, to this random stranger. But I said one of the major reasons why I moved to Austin was to meet people like this guy who I've been watching his podcasts for the past year. I want to meet people like that. And that's why I'm here. And I'm like, yeah, the guy's name is Danny Miranda. And she's like, Danny Miranda? That's my best friend. And so that just kind of prompted these incredible conversations. And just like all great conversations, it ended with us talking about the map of consciousness and love and God and why we think we're all here. And just overall, how great life can be. And so it was just a beautiful conversation. And she had the thought, the feeling that I needed to be at the retreat you'd be hosting a few days later here in Austin. And I've been following you on Twitter for a little while, and I'm hardly ever on Twitter, but I did see one day a few weeks ago when you posted about this and had the feeling internally like, I should really go. But I'm like, nah, I shouldn't. And then meeting Elle and her being like, you need to go. And despite it, I mean, to my knowledge, being sold out, you making room for me, and then you ending up sleeping on the couch just so I have a spot. It was the best. And I was like, okay, this is a sign that I need to be here. And so, man, I'm so grateful that Elle was like wanting to step away from her writing and realize like, hey, I need to talk to this random dude because it has changed my life. And Danny, that was like 2 weeks ago. Less than 2 weeks ago.
was that last week?
That was
a week and a half?
A week and a half ago.
That was 10 days ago.
And I feel like a complete different person on a cellular level.
Wow. Like what went through your head when she said, you got to go to the retreat? Was it immediate knowing?
Yeah. Because I had that feeling already, seeing your tweet, that was like, you should really go. And so it was just kind of like the external reaffirming what I kind of already knew, but was afraid to do. And so it's just like everything aligned perfectly. And it worked out exactly how it's supposed to, of course.
Yeah. So then take us through your experience of the retreat leading up to it, as well as what happens in the first 24 hours, let's say.
Oh, man. So Danny has a prep call a few days before the retreat starts, just that we could talk about a few things. And I noticed that Danny was keeping everything quite vague. I'm not sure if anyone else picked on it, but I was like, all we know is the time, the place, and that the retreat itself is called Be Light. That's it. Usually there's like an entire itinerary and a breakdown of exactly what we're going to be doing in every hour of the day. None of that. And everyone walked onto the call, of course, not knowing each other. We're all from different parts of the world, some in Germany, some from Colombia, some, of course, different parts of the country. And we're all just a little awkward at times. And one person brought up like, I don't know if this is really for me. I don't know how it's supposed to go. But the one underlying theme that we all had was that we had faith and trust in you. Whether we met you before or not, we just kind of like, hey, I trust Danny on this one. I've watched enough podcast hours to know that I can trust this dude. So yeah, that's what happened. And then, we arrived to this huge ranch house 30 minutes outside of Austin. And immediately, as I drive up, I see this man with the biggest smile on his face. I didn't even know this smile was even possible in a human being. Like, he felt like light. He felt like sunshine. And running towards me with his arms wide open to give me a hug. And then while we're hugging, you say, you're home. You're finally home. And I've heard that before, but I never felt it before. And in that moment, I really felt it. And so did other men that day. And so I think in total, there's about 15 of us, including you and the chef. And, first day, especially with men, a lot of them in their 20s or 30s, it's kind of like a little bit of a flex off, right? Everyone's like, all right, what do you do? What do you do for work? Like, it's just how men roll. And so that definitely was the case for the first few minutes. But for some reason, this one just felt a little bit different. I don't know why, but it felt different. And then you kind of corral us all together, get us in the living room, all sitting down. And then you prompt a question. I may butcher it, but it's, all right, now is the time to share with the group the one thing you don't feel like sharing, the one thing you feel uncomfortable to share, something about yourself that the first thing that comes to mind that you may have never told anyone else before. And immediately the room shifted. It felt kind of like this, how we're feeling in this moment. And it was so beautiful because you saw grown men who, some of which are millionaires, some of which are just incredibly successful, get incredibly vulnerable about whether it's drug addictions or relationships they do or don't have with their wife or father or mother, whatever it may be. Honestly, kind of felt like their deepest, darkest secret. But you made this immediate shift where we all just felt so comfortable to talk about the most uncomfortable topics. And then immediately, it's like that facade that our entire society runs on just dropped. You're like, oh, we can be human around each other. Thank you. I don't have to like keep up this front and identity of who I am and what I do and who I want to be. Just let it go. Let it go. Let's just be here. Let's be present. Let's talk like human beings. Let's treat each other kindly. I can't explain it, but it was like the greatest opener one can do because it set up the room to have the conversations that need to be had. That on top of your spontaneous random time meditation sessions. He's like, all right, now we're going to meditate for 34 minutes. Why? Why 34? But it was so spontaneous. But I knew at that time, and of course you were living by it, and I think everyone else kind of got the feeling that you were going into this retreat knowing that your intuition will guide yourself and the men to experience what needed to be experienced. And that worked perfectly. That really worked perfectly. And so once we were finally able to, how can I say it, probably unpeel the onion a little bit, which is a great reference because there was some crying involved, just like when you chop an onion. When we start out the gate, it just sets a tone for the rest of the weekend. And I don't know if you've ever felt this kind of buzzing feeling after you have a really in-depth conversation with someone, especially that you love, or even a complete stranger, and you leave there just feeling great, you're feeling more energy, even if it's about a sad topic. Imagine an entire weekend like that, like 48 hours plus of that. That's really how it felt. And whether we were together or we were, had some time off, guys would just kind of group up and talk about these same topics, and oftentimes go even more in depth. And so, in that first day, and especially that second day when we, ate meals together, we worked out together, we did more meditation sessions together, we did more exercises that you prompted us to really dive deep into what happened in our childhood, what's currently happening in our lives now, to see pretty much what is out of alignment. And so overall, the first 24 hours, man, it was an experience I've never had before around men, but it felt so right. Everyone there was like, where has this been my entire life? We need more of this in society. And so it just felt incredible.
Dude, it's really cool hearing you reflect on it. And it truly left me feeling like I want everyone to experience this, and especially with how quickly I felt that people were willing to go there, and that's the thing that I kept on thinking about, like, all of these people here are so capable of asking amazing questions, are so present, are so wanting to heal themselves in all the ways they're not whole. And I was really inspired by the commitment as well as the work that people had done previously to get to that point. And that it was just left me speechless, truly.
I completely agree. And I think the reason for that was because you led with vulnerability. I think you joked at first, was like, I got to get something off my chest. There's 15 of us, but only 12 beds.
Yes.
And so immediately kind of broke the tension. Everyone's laughing. And, but then you went into something deeper, and that prompted everyone else there to go into something deeper. And one thing I've realized, thankfully, the past year of my life, working with a lot of men, and especially in this moment at the retreat, it made it very clear to me that as men, our greatest strength is actually vulnerability.
Yes.
That is a thing we've all been wanting to bond over forever. That is the foundation for human connection, is to feel what someone is going through and be present for them in those moments to help them go through it. And it was just the most beautiful thing to witness how 15 random guys from all over the world, all different ages, all different backgrounds, somehow, whether they had no experience or all experience in the world, knew that when they were there to be present, they were there to heal themselves, and they were there to help others do the same. I've never seen a group of men who just so easily, what I would call, hold space for each other. And with no judgment, in a place where we talked about things that society would heavily judge. And it was just so beautiful, man, truly.
When did that journey start for you?
Oh, I'm someone who's always been into self-development, self-improvement. That started mostly with business books back in the day when I was in, I think, my younger teenage years, of like the Rich Dad, Poor Dad and the Dale Carnegie and all the books like that. But then it kind of evolved from the external and oftentimes business and getting the right routine and all that to then more internal. And I realized that, I think I've had an incredibly privileged life, but no one gets out of this life without some bumps and bruises and some scars. And I've had that too. And when I voice that to others in a safe, healthy, controlled environment, that pain that I was feeling towards that thing or that person is alleviated. Mm-hmm. And so whether it was, people in my life betraying me, people in my life dying, myself not doing the right thing by others, or not living my life to the fullest potential, and actually voicing that, that was the first step to healing it. And when I realized how much that impacted my life and how much that allowed my life to go back onto the right track, I knew that we need to give this to the world. Every man needs this. I realized this is how we stop the cycle. This is how we stop the cycle of the abused becoming the abuser, the alcoholic dad leading to an alcoholic son. This is how we do it. We talk about the pain and suffering, and we give each other the love necessary to heal from it. And when you look at it that way and you see society, which I know you and I have had this kind of unique lens of life where we've been able to kind of see the terrain and recognize the injustices maybe to a deeper level than most. When you see all the suffering that's taking place and you feel like you were able to overcome suffering in your own life, the next step after you've healed yourself is to teach others how to do the same. And man, that is where all of the joy and fulfillment in life lies. And it gives me so much hope for a better world. And all we have to do is just talk about it. Talk about it in a loving way, where we open the door for forgiveness for ourselves and everything we've been through, everything we may have done wrong to others, and most importantly, to forgive others for what they have done to us. And that literally just changes the game. And so that shift, going from external and business and understanding, self-improvement, that whole category, the culture that's behind that, to going more within, I think that happened for me, I would say my senior year of college. I'm 24 right now. So that was about 2 years ago when I realized that I was suffering. What was happening, this was kind of right after COVID. I was finishing up my senior year, getting my finance degree. But I was also working full time, selling financial products. And although I worked for a great company and I was making really good money for a college student, it felt so unaligned with the person I was supposed to be. And I wasn't expressing the gifts that I have. Therefore, it led to a lot of inner turmoil. So despite having enough money to have the car, to have the girlfriend, to have the great friend group, and in college, to have the parties and the weekends and feel validated in every way that they validate college students, inside I felt so empty. And so I tried to fill that hole with alcohol, with weed, with playing video games, Assassin's Creed for 15 hours straight, for sleeping with random women all the time, for binge eating. I developed an eating disorder around this time, and I actually had it for a few years because I was avoiding a lot of this. And I knew that's not how life was supposed to be lived. And I knew that a change needed to be had. And so it was unique because I picked up this habit where, and I now finally had some money to go on vacation. And after working, 12-hour days sometimes on top of school, the one thing I really looked forward to was late at night, I'd take an edible, smoke some weed, and then I'd YouTube like cool vacation spots because I finally had money to go do it. And every time it would just be Bali, 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 Bali. It would show videos of Bali for some reason. And again, I never left the country at this point, hardly ever really left Nevada, where I was born. I'm born and raised in Las Vegas, but I was going to school in Reno. And I began to kind of fantasize a dream life about Bali, a life where I was free. It was actually a place that, marijuana is heavily legal. The death penalty will be given to you if you smoke it there. And so I'm like, oh, well, maybe if I go to a place that my addictions aren't allowed, maybe I won't do them. That on top of just the idea of the freedom of a digital nomad life, of working from a laptop on the beach. It got to the point where I studied it so much that I knew, despite never being there before, the exact part of the island I live in, the gyms I go to, the coffee shops I go to, the clubs and Facebook groups that existed that I'd join and be a part of.
You had it all mapped out.
I had it all mapped out, but I never thought I'd actually do it. And I think a lot of people currently live that life somehow. They dream of this life where everything is perfect, which isn't true. But they think that's going to be the case when they, meet that one person, get that job, move to that place, whatever that equation may be in your head. And so that's what really got me through the day most times. Imagining about a life that I didn't actually think I'd ever live. I then one day hit a breaking point where, thankfully I never really developed serious drug problems, but it was so casual that it was getting a little bit more than just casual, if that makes any sense. But thankfully, with something in my career, I was able to, because I was doing well, I was able to sit in a room with people worth hundreds of millions of dollars. I was able to have dinner with them, able to spend multiple days with them. And at that point, that's all I really wanted from life. That was success, the finances. And I'm sitting at the table with these people, and all these people are on their third wives. They are incredibly obese. Their kids don't talk to them, but they're rich. And then they looked me in the eye and said, Cameron, if you keep doing what you're doing in the next 10, 20, 30 years, you can be where we're at now. And I felt my soul just drop, feel crushed. And then the very next day, I quit that job. I started to sell everything that I owned, knowing that I'd be graduating college in a few weeks. Booked a one-way ticket to Bali and just went there. And to many, that may sound incredibly irrational, and it definitely is. But to me, I'm like, it's now or never. I need to be here. And I now understand that I was in Bali for a multitude of reasons. One of the major lessons I learned when I first got there was when you finally get to that place you've been idolizing, you're still the same person. Now I may not have the vice of weed, but there's still a lot of alcohol. I remember I had an Xbox delivered to my little motel thing so I could play my Assassin's Creed and still order pizza and all this on their Indonesian delivery services. And so I was basically back in my little coping mechanism world that I had in the States, but I just created again in Bali. But now I felt even worse because back in America, I created this identity of myself of having the car, having the girlfriend, having this job that a lot of people wish they would have had. I had all these successes, but I detached from that identity with nothing to replace it at a time where I still felt the need to have an identity. And so I felt incredibly lost. And for the first handful of months, despite it being an incredible island, a fun, safe island full of just great times and great people, I'd spend most of it in my little like motel room, playing video games, ordering sushi and pizza, drinking alcohol. And I realized that my life was diminishing rapidly. And then just naturally, of course, just how the universe works, the right people came into my life. One was in the form of a girlfriend. One was just, or a few were just mentors of mine that I met. At the few times I did get out of the house to go to the gym or the sauna or at beach, I just randomly come across what I now see were angels there to guide me along my journey. And that led to many, many different experiences, many of which happened through breath work, through meditation. Some happened through mushrooms, so psilocybin, all of which led me to understand the universe in a much more profound way than ever before. And one experience I had, I would have said was the most profound experience of my life until this past weekend, was there's this guy who I now know is a shaman who I became friends with while in Bali. And he guides certain ceremonies. And those ceremonies, some of which are just with breathwork and meditation, but some of which are filled with magic mushrooms and psilocybin. And so he would tell me for weeks upon weeks to go to one of the ceremonies. I'm like, no, I may do it. And so I prolonged it for quite a while. I even got sick multiple times because I didn't want to go. But then I went. And it was a fantastic experience. And I took the medicine, and I then began to have this incredibly, I'm going to use the word uncomfortable experience for 6 hours straight. And that experience included, I'm laying down, I have a blindfold on, but I can see, and I'm remembering it now, I can see these two different kind of like light forces. And they were kind of fighting each other in some weird way. And I knew those light forces, one was the ego and one was my essence. And the essence, of course, was light. The ego, of course, was dark. And it's as if they were at war with each other. And the physical manifestation of that for me was my body was feeling incredibly uncomfortable, like for the longest time, just shaking. And I remember it so profoundly now that when I think about it, it kind of brings me back there for a second, but immensely uncomfortable. And then I had the thought or the download that my entire life, these two voices in my head, one being the essence, intuition, God, one being my ego, my conditioning. My entire life, I thought those voices were at war with each other. But in that moment, I had the download and realized that it's all actually a dance. And one of the most beautiful parts of life is learning how that dance can be best used to serve you. And then when I said in my mind, oh, it's all a dance, immediately those two lights went to the side. And then this bright white ball of light appeared about 6 inches from my face. And again, of course, I have my eyes closed, but it's just there. And I felt this throbbing coming from the center of my forehead. And all I said was, oh, hello, God. And it was one of the most profound, beautiful experiences of my life. And I was face to face with God. And for me, that manifested in the form of a white light, a white ball. And it was as if at that moment, my understanding, my knowledge and wisdom for the universe, just like 10x'd. I would say all that really happened was my level of awareness dramatically increased. And in doing so, I looked upon everyone and everything differently. I all of a sudden felt compassion and empathy for those who wronged me. I was able to look around society, whether it was the guy driving way too fast on his moped right next to me, flip me off and like kind of run me off, or, all those little kind of disagreements you may come to with just everyday life, or the major ones also, the people that have wronged me in major ways. I was able to understand where they're coming from. And immediately, all the resentment and hatred I had towards them no longer existed. And what it really allowed me to do is adopt a lens of looking at life, looking at everyone, seeking to understand instead of trying to be understood. And when you seek to understand others, it becomes so immensely clear that everyone in this world, no matter how quote unquote good or bad they're doing, they're simply all just doing the best they can. And it makes it incredibly hard to have any ill feelings towards anyone if you have that lens of life. So not only did it give me that lens of life, it also made me incredibly open to this new world that wouldn't have made sense years ago because it doesn't abide by the 5 senses that we have. It made it very clear to me that there is more to this world that I can't see. And simply just being open to it allowed that intuitive voice in my head, which used to just be a whisper, now become much stronger. And now with the knowledge that this is a dance, those voices in my head are a dance and not a war, I was able to live a life in a way where I can embody both in a way that served me best, or what I believe served me best at that time. And then just naturally following my intuition led me to meet the right people and do the right things. And it just completely evolved my life since then. Another big turning point in my life was in Bali, not too long after having that experience. I saw a poster outside of this co-working space for a men's circle. Didn't know what that was. I saw the same poster there for weeks. I'm like, no, I'm not going to that. That's not happening. I don't need to talk to random men about my problems. Who does that? Why would we ever do that? We're strong. We're not supposed to do that. Come on. I ended up finally going. And it's only about like 5 men there. Oh. And it was that moment I was able to embody a gift I've always known I've had, but never saw it actually happen in front of me. Oh man, now that I think about it, that's around the exact same time I started listening to your podcast. And that gift was being able to truly be present with someone, listen to them, and then just know the right question to ask next to get them to where they need to go in their own mind, in their own body. And then now, especially after meeting you, I realized around that time when I started to finally embody that gift, it made it very clear to me other people that may have similar gifts, and that is you. I remember listening to your podcast, quite a few episodes, and I would know the next question you're going to ask before you'd ask it. And so, of course, I love listening to this. I'm like, this guy's reading my mind. This is awesome. the Danny Manny podcast, this is the GOAT podcast. Like, this is going to be the next Joe Rogan. Like, this is incredible. To me, I'm like, this guy gets it. Because for some reason, although I had never met you at that time, I'm like, we're on the same page.
Mm.
There's something that we both understand that I've never seen anyone else understand. And for the first time, I really felt understood.
Mm.
It's funny, when I started to seek to understand others, it was the moment when I finally felt understood.
Mm.
And so, yeah, man, that was an incredible process. Go right ahead.
And isn't it funny that you helped somebody with that exact statement on the retreat?
Yeah.
When they sought to understand others, they felt understood themselves in a circle. Like, it's just such a truthful statement.
Yeah.
We understand others most when we are trying to reach out to them. And then by virtue, we actually get to learn about ourselves.
Most definitely. And so I'll bring it back to the men's circle in Bali. So I went to a handful of them and I really enjoyed it because I'm like, oh, this feels incredible. I was looking forward to those Wednesday nights because I was able to actually embody my gift for the first time, which gave me the best feelings life has. I felt incredibly fulfilled, even though we're talking about incredibly sad subjects. I felt incredible after. Like, what is this? And so after a few sessions, the guy who created it started to travel more. He's going to be leaving Bali. And he's like, Cameron, I want you to take it over. And me, at that time being 23, most people there were anywhere from 25 to, we had people in their 60s there.
Wow.
All different ages. And I was by far the youngest, but he handed it to me. And then I was not only asking questions, but holding the space for those questions to be asked, which, as you know, can be at times incredibly tricky, because when you're having all these egos talk about the most sensitive subjects of their life in front of each other, we need to be very careful with how people talk to each other. Make sure that the right conversation's being had and that they're not talking out of a place of I'm better than you and judgment towards oneself. Because if they're judged in those moments of vulnerability, they may never speak about it again. And so it was an incredible task, but I just felt amazing doing it. A feeling that I never had back then when I was making money or doing all the things society told me that would bring me this feeling. And it was just beautiful. And so we were able to grow that circle from what would have been 5 to 7 people normally showing up to 25, 30, starting to have turned people away. There's so many. And I'm like, oh, there's a need for this. There's a need. And then, a few months pass. I'm doing this pretty consistently. But then I get this sharp, intuitive feeling that I need to move back to America. Didn't know why, but I needed to be here. And at this point in Bali, I had not only been a part of community, but partially created a community. Because the one great thing about the men's circle is after we're done sharing about our feelings, let's go grab some steaks in Bali. Let's go surfing. Let's go do this. It's like we built a community around events and just doing things that we love to do together. So now I've got to leave my villa, leave the dog that I had, leave all these other things, my great friend group. But intuitively, I knew that I needed to be back in America at the time when it felt most inconvenient to do so. And so, yeah, that happened in November. For some reason, I don't know why, I'm like, I need to go to Austin, a place I had never been before, didn't know anyone from. I just knew intuitively I need to be there. My mind rationalized it by being like, oh, Joe Rogan's there. Danny Miranda's there. That's the type of guy I know I got to be around. And yeah. And so, I flew back to the States and spent Thanksgiving and Christmas with my family in Las Vegas. And I think they kind of felt I was a little bit of a changed man, but didn't really know how. I didn't know how to express it. They didn't know how to express it. But yeah, and then a few following weeks after the new year, I bought a car and then drove from Nevada to Texas and intuitively just found the right apartment that I now love. And now I'm here, man. And now, not only am I your friend, but like, it's deeper than that, bro. I can't even explain it.
Yeah.
which is all just crazy. And now I have like this incredible group of friends that I've never felt more seen and more understood around.
Mm.
And it's just a beautiful thing, man. So that's really what
a story
led me on my personal development journey.
Yeah.
And I think naturally, when I really think about it, because I thought about it the other day, like, why are people so into self-development?
Mm.
I think people are yearning for freedom.
Mm.
And, you know, you and I are both Jocko Willink fans, future guest of the podcast. He always talks about discipline equals freedom. That's all self-improvement is. Can we have discipline in our life so that we can have freedom financially with our relationships, with our health? And yeah, that's, I think, what I was really on the pursuit of. And for some reason, that led me right here to Austin. The same reason I think it's leading so many others to Austin. Yeah.
On that, it's such a beautiful story.
Thank you.
And it's so remarkable that it's really just getting started as well. On the point of discipline equaling freedom, I think what we've both realized is that you can have discipline in all of the external world by putting yourself out there, making a conscious choice to do business, or making a conscious choice to do fitness and going to the gym and having discipline. But I don't know if anyone has ever talked about the discipline of telling the truth equaling freedom. That's what we're really here to do, is to show people that if you tell the truth, if you have enough discipline to feel your emotions and feel what is going through you and say that to somebody, you can actually have freedom. Because the freedom of business, the freedom of your body, the freedom of it, everything else pales in comparison to the freedom that I feel right now from telling the truth over and over and over and over and over again. The other ways I was trying to get freedom externally are nothing compared to the internal freedom I feel from saying what I actually felt over and over and over again. Does that resonate with you?
100%. 100%. And the more I've been able to embody the truth in my own life, the more I realize that we've always kind of known it.
Yes.
And everyone knows it.
Yes.
If we think about the comedians we love the most, the Dave Chappelle's out there, if we think about the politicians that we actually like the most, we think about all these people, the ones that really resonate with us are the ones we feel are telling the truth, especially when it's inconvenient. I think that is what people desire most in another human, another friend. Someone who is truthful to them, someone who is honest, especially when it's uncomfortable. And when I've been able to embody truth more in my life by being truthful to myself about the person I am, my past experiences, the person I truly want to become, and separate the truth for what society tells me is the truth. Separating who I actually am from the identity I formed through the conditioning society brought me. And when I can decipher the two and choose to live a life fully embodying my truth, it's a level of freedom that finances can't buy. And it is just the most beautiful thing in the world. Yeah.
So what's been the most difficult truth you've had to say?
Oh man, Danny. The most difficult truth.
I'll tell you mine first.
I'd love to hear yours.
The most difficult truth I've had to say is to tell my dad that I actually resented him for the way he raised me in terms of emotionally lacking what I felt like was emotional intelligence, and that he didn't guide me and that he didn't assure me from my perspective. And also tell him the truth that he really did help me in so many ways, that he helped me just find discipline. He helped me learn what work ethic is. He taught me how to lead. He taught me how to be somebody. And this is things that I wanted to push away to the side. I wanted to not give him the credit that he did and give him the credit for being somebody who could financially support the family, or giving the credit for him being a gentleman and treating women the right way always. Like, I didn't want to give him that credit because that would mean that my story was incorrect. So that was the most difficult truth that I've had to go through.
Yeah, that's it. 100%. That the stories we've been playing in our minds about ourselves and the people around us are stories we created to keep that fear in our hearts.
Yeah.
Keep that darkness in our hearts.
Yeah.
I think I went through something, I think very similar. One thing I noticed, and something that I finally overcame during this retreat, and was the last domino that needed to fall before I can truly self-actualize, was and this is a very important distinction. I created a story in my head that my parents did not unconditionally love me. I created a story in my head that my close friends did not unconditionally love me. But the truth was, I just didn't unconditionally love myself. I don't know what it was during my childhood. I don't know what it was throughout the past 24 years of my life, but I created this story in my head that my family, my friends were unapproving of these, as you all know, these vastly different life choices I decided to make. And I thought they looked less of me, looked down upon me, because I haven't made as much money as I probably would have if I would stay to that job. Or I was taking so many left turns, it veered so far off the normal path that I thought there was this underlying level of judgment for my family. And it was coming to terms with, I made all that up. That's just a story that I've been having in my head for years. And every interaction I have with my father or my aunts, my uncle, my mother, everyone in my life, I'd be looking at it through a lens of, I'm trying to find a thing to reinforce the belief that they don't believe in me, that they think I'm a little bit crazy, that they don't approve of the life choices I've made. But that lens actually wasn't there at all. And the crazy thing is, thank you, God, universe, whatever it is, the moment I realized that is just a story I've been telling myself my entire life, was the moment that the external reaffirmed to me that it was a story. Literally 24 hours later.
Wait. How did you come to the conclusion first that this was a story in your head?
I reflected on the things that triggered me into believing that story was true. And so, the first thing that comes to mind is like just texts I'd get from my dad. While living in Bali, it'd be hard to FaceTime once in a while, time zones and everything. And he'd just be like, "What are you doing this week?" I would take that as, "What are you doing this week?" You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And it's like these little, I couldn't understand the tone. Therefore, yeah. And so some people are like, "So what are you doing up there in Bali?" And then I think, "What are you doing up there in Bali?" In some weird way, I would change the tone in their voice in my head to make them think they were judging me for my life choices. When actually most of them deeply admired my ability to make these dramatic changes in my life, following my heart, going on some journey that either they have always wanted to do or that they just deeply admire. They don't really see that often in other people. But for some reason, I just held on to this part of me, this chip on my shoulder that I thought was the fuel getting me through the day, but was actually the thing holding me back from reaching my potential and embodying love and being able to love deeper than ever before. And so I held on to this judgment from others that I thought was there, especially the people that I love the most, which is weird. It wasn't happening from like random people on Twitter or YouTube. It was like the people I love the most. I had this little bit of judgment, and it fueled me for years. It fueled me into running. I remember in Bali, I'd go to the coffee shop every morning right after I wake up, drink as much caffeine as I can, and then go on a run. And I'm like, it's Goggins mode time. It's Goggins time. Dude, it got so out of hand that on those runs, I would think about all the atrocities and injustices that are taking place in the world. All the wars that are going on in the Middle East, what's going on in Russia, Ukraine, what felt as if the slow poisoning of Americans going on with certain companies that are in the pharmaceutical industry, the military industrial complex, the food industry. And I got to the point where I started memorizing names of board members at these companies. It was that much rage, and now I know was fear, was ingrained in me that I thought was fuel. And so I kind of created this internal monster, which I feel as if so many men have and women have within, that they think is this fuel source that's getting them through the day. That's the thing that's making them successful, making them to make the money or build that body. It's coming from a place of lack and scarcity. A thing that I thought, a story I made up in my head, thinking that the people that were supposed to love me didn't actually love me, that there was this gap of where they needed to love. But that's not the case at all. I'm so fortunate. I have incredibly loving parents and family and friends that genuinely support me. But I still decided to mess that up somehow for years. But that's okay. And so, yeah, I really think, especially with my father and a handful of other family members and close friends, college buddies, I mistook what they were saying to me and made it a negative connotation when it didn't need to be. Which was unique because that's such like a small tweak. But I had forgiven people who have stolen a lot of money from me. I've forgiven people who have cheated on me. I've forgiven people that have stabbed my back. But for some reason, that was the last domino to fall. That was the one thing I just couldn't get over. But man, when I finally did, everything changed. When I let the truth come to fruition, everything changed.
How did you say the truth?
When I saw the world for what it was, and I spoke that, and unwired or detached from that story, that's when my intuition, the voice in my head, the one that I constantly had to balance versus my ego, that is when the intuition was, for the first time in my life, finally in the driver's seat. I believe intuition is the authentic voice of God. So being more embodied with your intuition and living your life according to it, it gives you all the joy, bliss, and fulfillment life has to offer. And so speaking the truth for myself and acting on my intuition, whatever it tells me to say or do, that is what I feel as if is what's going on underneath that's causing us to speak the truth. And that itself has created what feels like a completely different life that I just deeply enjoy. And so all I had to really do was let go. Let go of all these mind movies and stories I've been telling myself for years. And looked at life for what it actually was. And I seek to understand others instead of trying to be understood. In those moments, I try to understand, what do those texts really mean? What do those side comments really mean? Oh, they just generally want to know how I'm doing. And that really just changed everything for me, man.
And how did the retreat play such a transformational role in all of this?
On Saturday, we're all sitting outside. It's a beautiful ranch house in the backyard. We're all in the little lawn chairs and in the grass. And you prompted us with 5 questions. And I don't remember all of them, but I remember number 3.
I'd love to keep the questions private in case we do this exercise in the future.
Okay. No worries.
Yeah.
No worries. What that exercise brought up to me was that my entire life I've been telling the story that I'm not unconditionally loved. In the following hours that took place after that realization, I'm just now realizing that I helped other men understand that they are unconditionally loved already. They've also just been telling stories in their head. But before I came to realize that I'm telling myself stories, I exposed in them that they're telling themselves stories. And so because I seek to understand them, I finally understood myself.
And then it was immediate.
It's immediate.
You immediately help somebody unconditionally love themselves immediately after, right?
Yes. And I felt like this huge weight that I didn't really know was there was lifted off my shoulders. I felt lighter. At the Be Light retreat, I felt lighter. And so that was day 2, and that was the most incredible experience. And then, later on, a handful of hours later, we're all having dinner. We had a fantastic dinner. Shout out to Chef Jeffrey for just crushing every single meal. It was the absolute best. So glad he was a part of it. But he was more than just a chef. That's what made him so great. And after that Saturday dinner, you were sitting on the right. Jeffrey was sitting on the left. And I was talking about how for so much of my life, I've had what I now know, what was recently exposed to me as an eating disorder. I would have an immense amount of judgment towards myself for having a cookie, for having foods that I genuinely enjoy. And it was a conversation really centered around how it deeply matters the intention and why you're eating the cookie. Are you running away from something? Are you like stuffing them all down your face like a dozen, or the Oreos, like the whole bag, whatever it may be? Or is it coming from a place of, I just want to enjoy this beautiful dessert?
Yeah.
Like, what is the intention behind it?
What was the context of this? Do you remember?
I don't know.
I don't know either.
But apparently it's a conversation that needs to be had.
Well, I was talking about how Jeffrey asked me about cookies, or he asked me what my vices are. And I said, I love cookies. And there was no shame around eating a cookie or going to Whole Foods and picking up some cookies, because I knew, like, cookies are great. They're enjoyable. They're an amazing part of my life. And I love cookies. And because society shames you eating a cookie, because Jocko will say, don't eat a cookie, doesn't mean that I have to take that as true. I could love that cookie, and I could love the fact that I ate it and be proud of it.
Food is one of the most beautiful parts about life. Right. If I'm in Italy, I'm going to have some great pasta.
Right.
I may have a glass of red wine too.
Right.
Even though it's alcohol.
Right.
It's not that big of a deal.
Right.
And it is the intention behind these things.
And how you feel about it after doing it.
Exactly.
Do you feel shame around doing a thing that's not good for you? It's like, that's probably worse for you than the mere act of eating it or having it.
Exactly.
And it doesn't mean to bask in it 24/7.
Yeah.
But if you go on a retreat and you have a realization, you can have a cookie after.
Yeah, that's okay.
It's okay.
That's okay.
Absolutely.
And this all happened in this perfect kind of sequential order where I was able to help another person understand that they're unconditionally loved. And it was as if immediately I felt the unconditional love for myself for the first time. That's why I was at the dinner with you guys, just feeling so great, so light. And then somehow a conversation around areas of my life at the moment that I didn't feel free in, that I can just have a damn cookie. Immediately, once it was spoken, I felt free from it. Yeah. I'm like, oh, this no longer serves me. Right. I no longer have to have this story in my head, this mind movie, this belief that I've been holding my entire life around food. I can just let go. and not have that going forward. And so you're telling me eat the damn cookie. And I'm laughing like, oh my gosh, it's that simple. Why can I not get out of my way for all these years? But at the same time, I forgive myself. I understand. Because earlier on that day, healing others allowed me to heal myself, which in turn expanded my capacity for love. And when you expand your capacity for love, it automatically moves away that part inside of you, that darkness inside of you, that fear inside of you, that is the house for all vices, that is the house for all judgment. And that day, I expanded love so much for myself because I finally gave myself the unconditional love I've been wanting my entire life, that it just pushed aside all the vices. Man, in the span of a weekend, in the span of 24 hours, I went from someone who discipline was an incredibly hard thing to do, staying away from the alcohol, staying away from the weed, the video games, the porn, the masturbating, all these things. It had to be this conscious day-to-day fight, battle to stay away from, to immediately being like, oh, I no longer need these things.
Wow.
I have no desire. I was raised above desire, that I transcended my vices. And that is the healing that men need, that all humans need. So right now, to stay away from alcohol, I don't think twice about it. I quit coffee the other day. I don't need that anymore. I thought it'd be this hard process. I heard there's like this huge like recovery period or withdrawal period. I don't need anymore. Yeah. I'm good. Yeah. And the good news is, if I ever decide to smoke weed again in 5 years because I'm on the Joe Rogan podcast or I'm with Snoop Dogg and, like I want to, it'll come from a healthy place. It'll come from a place where I know the intention and I'll actually enjoy it for the moment. So that thing is no longer a coping mechanism. It's no longer something that we can label bad or good. It just is. It is what it is. And that's just a healthy way to live life. But the way I got there was expanding my capacity for love by first loving myself and therefore loving the world around me.
So, so beautiful. What opens up by way of synchronicities when you expand your capacity for love?
Everything. Man, as you know, it's become so clear to me that whatever simulation or video game or whatever this is that we're currently experiencing, the name of the game is love. Because when someone chooses to live a life full of unconditional love for themselves and for others, this when life gets a lot of fun. This is what I realize is what people find most attractive. The people that are the most loving. The people that are most loving are the ones that also tell the truth, because truth and love are the same thing. And in every aspect, my life has just dramatically changed. And that's only been a handful of days since the retreat. Because I've removed the darkness from my heart. And people can sense it on an energetic level. People can sense it. And so ever since then, a handful of people every day are walking up to me wanting to start conversations. Or I'm getting the intuitive feeling I need to go to them and tell them something. And all the conversations always end in talking about love or talking about the universe or God in some way. And things are just happening in the most coincidental way, but I realize coincidences aren't even a thing. Where life is, Danny, most people operate life thinking that life happens to them. And the biggest shift that they can make in their life is realizing that life happens for them. When they look at the life around them and see it as what it is, when they adopt a level of awareness that all these things, the good and the bad, are happening for me to teach me something that changes the game. And then when they fully embody that life is happening for them, and they look at life through the lens of love fully, that is when life begins to happen through you. It feels like I'm playing a different game now. A game that humans are designed to play. It is our natural state of being. We are much more powerful than what the world has ever told us, in ways that we may never be able to fully comprehend. This is my third day out here, so I don't know, like that little Uzi Vert meme, like, but man, I've gotten a taste of what this is, what's on the other side of fully embracing love to the fullest extent for everyone and everything. And it is the most beautiful thing in the world. We have the level of awareness to realize that although we aren't immune to pain, we aren't immune to suffering, what we are immune to is giving power to anything external, which is the real problem. Because you and I now see everything in life as exactly what it is. A test. A beautiful experience we're here to fully feel. And when we decide to fully feel our emotions and express them in a healthy way and then neutralize them and then turn them back into love, like any good alchemist, that is when life happens through you. And that is when we can create heaven on earth for ourselves. And I know those who haven't experienced it yet may be doubtful. But man, this life gets a whole lot better when you sprinkle a little bit of love on it. And it's so worth it.
Yeah. Where in your life are you not sprinkling love? Is it going to the gym? Is it when you're listening to a podcast? Is it when you wake up in the morning? Just replace the statements that you are making with, I love myself. 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 I love you, God. I love you, God. I love you, God. I love you, God. So much opens up. I know it sounds corny. I know it sounds like that doesn't even make sense. But I know from personal experience, when I say, I love you, God, over and over and over again, miracles happen in my life. This is coming from somebody who for 27 years did not believe in God or did not think God was real. So try it for 30 days. Say, I love you, God. I love you, God. I love you, God. I love you, God, over and over and over again, even if you don't believe it. Watch what happens at the end of 30 days. That is sprinkling love into your life. Nothing to lose.
And I just want to reassure everyone, because this is something that Danny and I needed to overcome to make this happen, is we need to let go and have faith that if we make it our mission, if we decide to play this video game by the objectives it's designed by pursuing the path of letting go and surrendering and increasing our capacity for love, all of our other wants and needs will be taken care of.
Yeah.
The rent will somehow be paid. Whatever else is stopping you, whatever thoughts you are assigning to your feelings of doubtfulness, stopping you from adopting this love For those that have given you judgment and resentment and fear, I promise you they are also illusions. And that you are capable of loving yourself and loving the world around you. And it is well worth it, and it's the most beautiful thing.
I spoke to someone on the Run Club a couple of days ago, and I could just see in his eyes. I talked to him about the retreat, and I could see there was heavy resistance to going or thinking about one in the future, but that he wanted to go. And I told him, I made more money with the retreat than I've made with anything in my life. And it was the most fulfilling. And it was the deepest and closest to my purpose. And it's all because I let go. I let go of the way that I wanted it to be okay. I let go of 1 million downloads a month to be okay. I let go of selling out Madison Square Garden to be okay. I let go of so many things. And God was there to hold me in a space of loving compassion and let me know that it was not just going to be okay. It was going to be better than I could imagine.
It's the ultimate test in life. And the funny thing is, as soon as we make peace with the end result and outcome, and we let go of it, God has a funny way of giving it to us.
So I was on the phone with my dad on his birthday. I mean, this is not just platitudes. Like, this is real life. This is real shit. I was on the phone with my dad for his birthday, and I was next to Cameron, my friend Al, and Cole. And I have him on speakerphone. I said, "Happy birthday, Dad. You have given me so much. I'm so grateful for you. You know, you're a really special human being, and this past weekend has been the most transformational of my life, and I know it's in huge part thanks to you." And Cameron comes in, and he talks about his experience. Said, "What did you say about it?"
First off, I said, Mr. Miranda, your son is an angel, number one. Number two is that it was the most profound experience of my life because it allowed me to expand my capacity for love. And now the things I used to fear, the vices I used to have, I no longer have. And so your son gave me a gift by hosting this retreat and allowing me to come. And I told him, Miss Miranda, I just hope you're incredibly proud of the person your son is becoming. And I just want you to know that he unconditionally loves you. He knows that you unconditionally love him. And that, Mr. Miranda, I've never met you before, but I love you. And then we hang up the phone. And I, who hardly ever bring out my phone when we're at dinner, I just had the feeling I should. I had gotten a text from my father. And it was a long paragraph telling me that he unconditionally loves me and that he's so proud of me and supports me for everything. And he talked about with his own career path, how many people questioned it and didn't support him, but that he fully supports me and that he loves me and he's proud of me and proud to call me his son. And this happened within the same 24 hours where I finally made peace that the story in my head may not be true and that he has loved me this entire time, but also at peace with the idea that he may not, which is the important part. And then I called Danny's dad for some reason, who I've never met before, and tell him the unconditional love Danny's given me and that Danny has for him. And then immediately I get it from my dad, unprompted.
Unprompted, while on the phone.
While on the phone.
While we were on the phone with my dad, your dad was sending you a text that he unconditionally loved you, unprompted.
And Danny, I think that is something that most men struggle with. And even if it's just an illusion or story in their head, like I believe that I had with my father, I know it can be incredibly real for many men, for most men. And it is until they become at peace that it's time to give themselves unconditional love and time to give their father unconditional love, despite any judgment their father may have towards them. That is the thing that's going to give them the freedom they've been desiring their whole life. The freedom that moving to this new city wouldn't give them, having a new job wouldn't give them, making them $100 million wouldn't give them. They're capable of achieving that freedom at any given moment. They just have to shine light in places that are dark.
Who's the person, who are the people who are you feel most resentment towards, fear towards, anger towards, because they did something wrong and it can't be that way for you to be okay? Who are those people? Look at them and analyze and ask yourself, how can I find a way in my life to forgive them and then to love them? The key to all your freedom is there. The key to life becoming magical is there. I know it because I'm on the other side of it. I feel it. And I look at the places where I hold any shred, any small bit of judgment or looking down upon someone. I look at that and I just meet it with compassion. And on the other side of that is true freedom. True freedom in a way that I hope every person living gets to experience. The ability to be in any room and be completely okay. The ability to be comfortable in your body, mind, and spirit. The ability to just understand you are taken care of and guided in every moment. You are blessed. 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 I hold that for every human.
And that's what makes you the angel that you are. That's exactly what the world needs. Danny, I can't describe the feeling I get after I'm meditating often, but also throughout my life where we're on the precipice of something great happening. There is a change taking place. People are waking up. And it is going to be the most beautiful experience in our lifetime seeing it happen. Especially knowing that we're a part of it.
Yeah.
We're leading it.
Yeah.
And anyone else can choose to join as soon as they embrace love, as soon as they decide to heal themselves so that they can teach the world how to do the same. And that is how we can return to our natural state of being as humans. Loving beings that God is working through us every day and in every way. And life feels easy. It feels like this grand symphony taking place right in front of us. It feels like heaven on earth. And we can choose to make that happen at any given time. But it all starts with you. It all starts with every member listening to this. Once a person is free within, their external will follow. And it will incite freedom amongst everyone and everything around them. You will attract, Danny, the God within us will attract the God out of them and bring it to the front of their mind, to the front of their heart, to the front of their soul. And they will feel immense amount of love that they never had before and realize what this game is all about.
You know how you look at someone like from the 1950s and it's so common to like hit your children? It's like we are all hitting ourselves emotionally all the time. And it's so accepted to tear ourselves down and thereby tear others down because we haven't looked at our stuff. You repeat the pattern over and over and over again until you look at it and understand where it comes from. And I think we're going to look back in 30 years, 40 years and say, wow, I can't believe people put themselves down like that. I can't believe they felt insecure or shame or feelings like guilt or fear and manifested those in advertisements and just speaking down upon people. Like, we're going to look at behavior below 200 on the map of consciousness as inhumane. It's already starting to happen. And we are part of that movement in making that happen, where love is at the forefront of people's minds. And love is at the forefront of people's minds. Think about what that means. If leading from the heart is greater than leading from the mind, when you put love at the center of your mind, you're helping the world become whole.
It is the solution to all of today's problems. It is a solution. And all we have to do is give ourselves a space to allow it to unfold in front of us. All we have to do is sit in silence, and it'll come up. The conversations that need to be had with yourself and the world around you will come up in silence. They're just waiting for you to turn this little brain off. Allow this brain, this mind to take a rest. And it'll come up.
So you brought up meditation and you brought up sitting in silence. Curious why you think the truth comes up when we are quiet.
Oh man. I don't know who said the quote, of course, but it's like the root of all man's problems is inability to sit in a room in silence with his own thoughts.
Blaise Pascal.
That's why you're a great podcast host. Yeah, that guy.
Pretty sure it was him.
I think that's 100% true. In today's day and age, society has created a life for every individual, starting from an incredibly young age, to never have the mind shut off. And we think all of our thoughts and ideas are ourselves, which just purely isn't the case. So we live every day either thinking about the future, oftentimes with fear and anxiety, or reflecting in the past, oftentimes with regret. And we're never able to actually be in the present moment. And our brains are just in overdrive. They're incredible machines, but we're abusing them in the wrong ways. Our minds can create anything we could ever want, but we're using them the wrong ways. I believe what's happening when we decide to get quiet, or decide to focus on our breath, or just have the awareness of our thoughts and see them not as reality, but simply as an illusion, which they are. It allows us to take a step back and allow the feelings that have been bottled up for minutes, hours, days, years, decades, to finally come up and finally be felt. And when that finally happens, it allows the voice of God to come through us in the form of our intuition. And so the reason why most people avoid meditation, of course, is a surplus of distractions. They have many of other alternatives to sitting in a room in silence. But the real reason why people don't like it is after a while, you start to ask yourself, why am I doing this? Why am I living life this way? Why am I poisoning myself? And those are questions that people so desperately want to avoid because they know they are living a life unaligned with how they're meant to live, with how humans are meant to live. And so avoiding meditation is just avoiding asking the right questions to oneself. But when someone embraces meditation and embraces those questions or those feelings when they inevitably come up, they allow for themselves to have an immense amount of clarity of what their life should look like going forward. And they're given all the intuitive feelings necessary to get there. And so I think it's the ultimate tool that we have, the ultimate exercise as humans we can perform to reconnect with our intuition, to realign ourselves on the right path. So meditation for me, breathwork in particular, has dramatically changed my life for the better. It's allowed me to finally grieve the people that have passed in my life. It's allowed me to get an immense amount of clarity during confusing times. And it allows me to remember that all the jumble, or whatever you want to call it, that's going up on here all the time is pointless. And that suffering is unneeded. So meditation has served me very well. But Danny, this is one of the questions I want to ask you. You are someone who I deeply look up to when it comes to your meditation practice, someone who Elle deeply looks up to. And so I'd love to know, what has meditation meant for you in your own life?
In a world that constantly wants to feed you your next thought, it's allowed me to find space for myself. We know that our attention is valuable. Elon Musk wants it. Mark Zuckerberg wants it. In some way, I want it. I want your attention, the person listening right now, because I believe I have a path of freedom. So everybody wants your attention. But do you want your attention? Meditation allowed me to understand how valuable my attention really is. How valuable my presence really is to myself. And when I really sat with nothingness, I realized there was everything there. When I really sat in the void of darkness, I really became grateful for what I saw in front of me because I recognized that there's a possibility that there was nothing at all. And then I couldn't experience the joy of this podcast. It's like, yeah, there's no God because this is nothing. There's no thing here. There's clearly something here.
Yeah.
We're clearly, something has happened. We are experiencing something. How do you think we started experiencing something? You think this is just a fluke? You think no thing created something? Come on now.
How?
Yeah, because that's how we create things. When we create a water bottle or a podcast, no thing created something? No, we created it. So why wouldn't that be true for us as well? So meditation made me realize a lot of that. But from the deepest levels, meditation allowed me to understand my own insecurities. to allow me to be more present. From the most practical level, it's like, you want to know where you're not free? Sit in a room with yourself for an hour. You want to know where you're not free? Sit in a room by yourself for 1 hour. The roadmap will appear. And so I saw all my insecurities for what they were, and I was able to love them, and I was able to forgive the people. I was able to just be, and okay just being. Think about how good life gets when you're okay just being.
It's the best, man. It's the best, man.
Like, you don't need anything from anyone. You're just okay being. And so people often tell me, and they tell you, it's like, I've never told anyone this in my life.
Yes.
I'm sure you're receiving that a lot over the past 3 days and for the past weeks and just who you are in general. The reason for that is because we are okay just being.
Yes. And they feel that.
And they feel that. We don't have to say anything at all, but they understand this person's okay with themselves and okay with all of their stuff. So if they're okay with all of their stuff, let me tell you my stuff. If you notice in a conversation, it will typically go, the focus of the conversation will typically go to the person who is least free. Least free. Think about this from the perspective of somebody who's involved in all of the drama of their life, and they're very like they're dealing with situation after situation that is uncomfortable, and they need to get it out and they need to share it. They're going to share it to the person who is capable of holding space for them in that world. And so look in your own life, where is the focus of the conversation? Is it on you? If the focus is on you often, it typically means that you are the person who is least free in the dynamic. Incredible. So meditation made me realize all of this. I'm really grateful for it. So thank you for the question.
I have to ask, now that you are on the other side of it,
Yeah.
and again, this is just a feeling I have being in the same room as you, I know that you're free.
Yeah.
And it's so beautiful to witness because it really feels like it's 1 in a million.
Yeah.
To be around someone who genuinely feels free. What was the hardest thing for you to become free from?
I think it was my dad. It might have been coming from a wealthy family. It might have been relationships with women. I was doing an exercise with my girlfriend. Like, I wouldn't also speak about having a significant other or a relationship. So that's like the most recent one. But I was doing an exercise with my girlfriend last night about shame. We went from every age of our lives and said, what did we feel shame for in this period, and this period, and this period, and this period? And what I noticed was from 16 to 20, I felt shame around not getting girls. And then from 21 to 25, I felt shame for misusing girls and sleeping with too many. And I was like, what? This is amazing. Like, the fact that the same situation caused me shame in both. It was really cool to remark that and see that within myself. And so I don't know if there was one major, massive domino, but I just know, like, there were so many little things that I was insecure about that once I looked at one with love and compassion, then another, you get excited. We were like, excited doing the shame exercise because we're like we know that we don't want to do this, but the deepest part of us does.
Yes.
So
it's as if our awareness compounds.
Mm-hmm.
Unveiling one part of the room that's dark with the flashlight, you're shining light in that darkness.
Yeah.
It's as if the flashlight strengthens.
Yeah.
There's more light to be shined.
Yeah.
And therefore, when you look at other parts that are dark, you can see more of it. And it feels kind of good. You actually enjoy this process.
Yeah.
It can be an enjoyable process if you want it to be. That's incredible, my man.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So I highly recommend that practice of going through 0 to 5, 6 to 10, 11 to 15, and just on and on and on. And ask yourself, what was the part of this period that I was most shameful about, or that I held the most fear or anxiety? And just list out all of the things that come to mind.
Yeah.
because both of us, me and my girlfriend, are very free people. And still, we were able to look at the things and be like, wow, I didn't even think about that until this moment. So,
But it seemed as if, I mean, as you're speaking it, you're kind of surprised and excited that there are more rocks to turn over.
yes.
More things to uncover.
Yes.
It's a complete mindset shift that allows you to look at life like, oh, this will actually be fun. Some stuff that would have been incredibly painful to begin with probably feels so light now.
Right. Could you imagine looking at the problems or insecurities you have as lights? Because that's what they really are. At the deepest level, they are ways for you to become more free. But you're holding on to them so tightly because no one can know this thing. It's like, well, what if everyone knew it? And what if you were happy with everyone knowing it? Then you become free. You are keeping yourself in a prison right now. If you are holding on to some insecurity and not wanting anyone to know about it, that is a prison.
Yes.
And freedom is waiting for you on the other side.
And truly speaking it, if it doesn't fully heal, will dramatically improve your relationship with it. And that is why speaking the truth is so incredibly important, because that's exactly what you're doing. The truth shall set you free. As we've always been told, this is what they were talking about.
Yes.
And it's the most beautiful thing.
Yes.
Danny, I need to bring up, because there's this one book that has dramatic. I'm going to be fully transparent. I haven't read the whole thing yet, but I look through it every single day. My intuition lands me on a certain page. Always happens to be the exact thing I needed to read during that moment in my life, of course. But the book Map of Consciousness by David Hawkins has been the focal point of your Instagram stories, of your podcast, of your life. Talked about a lot during the retreat, everything.
Yes.
Please describe to me what this book actually means to you.
Everybody knows that love feels better than fear, but nobody has had a way to quantify that until David Hawkins illuminated to me in the Map of Consciousness Explained. And it really helped me understand why we say, oh, that person's got a good vibe. I said, okay, that person's number on the scale is this. And so when I saw that and saw that he had worked through many of the same problems that I was facing in my own life, it all clicked. But I didn't know about David Hawkins' work to the level that I did really until the past 3 months. And I was aware of it for the past year. But for some reason, in May of 2020, I'm sitting outside meditating, and it just hits me, a download. The reason why you're here, your purpose in life, is to raise the consciousness of humanity. So when I stumble across David Hawkins' work, a mere 3.5 years later, I said to myself, oh, this makes sense. This is part of my purpose on this floating rock in space, to help show people this map. Because I didn't know about his work, and the download that I got that was so clear was, you're here to raise the consciousness of humanity. And then David Hawkins gives me the actual blueprint to do so. God bless that man who passed away 11 years ago and who's probably floating over us in some way in this conversation. But yeah, it's been the most important book that I've read, and it's helped illuminate so much of the ways in which I've held myself back in the past, and it gives people a real way to understand where to go to feel more whole.
It's the path towards freedom.
Yes. Yes.
I know so many people, including myself, that my entire life have been optimizing for freedom. That's what I thought was the reason I moved to Austin and then moved to Bali and have a certain political affiliation and want to make a lot of money and want this type of lifestyle. I thought it was that, but no. It's to raise my number on the scale shown in the map of consciousness. And the higher you are in the scale, the more you embody love. You embody love by seeking to understand those who you once had resentment towards. Naturally, you'll begin to have compassion and empathy for them, which will lead to love for them, which will expand your love. Therefore, raising your number on the scale, improving your human experience. I'm so grateful you got that download so many years ago. And it's become so clear to me now that that is the reason why I've been attracted to your work for the past year. That is the reason why I felt as if I knew the questions you're going to ask before you asked them. That the reason why all this is taking place is because I am here to do the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah, you are. Chills throughout my body just now. What the fuck?
I was living in Indonesia a few months ago. And God put me here in front of you right now and put me in front of you last week. He had to drop another angel in my life as El to like shake me up to make sure I get close to Danny to learn this so that I can fully embody love myself and therefore fulfill the same mission that you have to expand consciousness, give that to the world, to heal the world. I strongly believe it's a natural evolution of humans.
Yes.
And it's where we're all going. War, hate, resentment, fear will be a thing we evolve through, a thing we transcend above.
Mm-hmm.
And it's happening before our very eyes.
We're 28 and 24 years old. For anyone older listening to this, when did 28 and 24-year-old people, men, talk like this? When? For people younger, this is the way. This is the path. This is the future. We are going to envelope this whole thing in love to the best of our abilities, starting with ourselves and then expanding to our communities, our friends, the people around us, our cities, our countries, our world. This is what we're here to do. We are here to envelope it all with love.
Those of you who are able to find the Danny Moreno podcast, somehow, you are here to do the same. And that is why you've been attracted to Danny's work. And that is why you're listening to this podcast. Don't get me wrong. There are larger forces at play. And it's so incredible this is happening in 2024 when I'm 24 and you're 28. And just now do we have the technology to assist us in spreading this message. And soon to be even better technology to spread it at rates so much faster than we can ever imagine, to literally expand it to levels that have never been expanded before. It makes me so happy that I was born when I was born. And it makes me so happy that finally I'm not resisting my gifts. Because every moment I've ever suppressed my gifts for speaking, my gifts for asking questions, my gifts for writing, my gifts for holding space for others and connecting with other human beings. The suppression of those gifts has led to all of the turmoil, fear, sadness, depression, anxiety that has taken place in my life. But the moment I decided to align my life with those gifts and embrace connecting with humans in the way that I do best, that has led to heaven on earth. And that is what we are all here to do, to utilize our gifts for greatness and return back to our natural state of being through God.
So what can someone do? They're listening to this.
It is so fantastically simple. So fantastically simple. It is actually the most simple thing one can possibly do.
Yes.
The first thing I'd recommend is meditate. Is like we talked about earlier, allow yourself, give yourself permission to stop overthinking and allow yourself to feel again. Whatever feelings need to come up. Could be a lot of crying, could be a lot of sadness, could be some anger, oftentimes a lot of laughter. But it is to feel those feelings, which will happen naturally if you simply just give yourself the time and space to meditate and be present in this moment, like how life is designed to be. And what will take place after that is that whisper that's in the back of all your heads will become a little bit louder, which is intuition. And the more you listen to that whisper, which is now more of like a room level talk, it'll just become stronger and stronger.
And it'll probably tell you to do something that you don't want to do. If this is your first time or your first week or your first month of the practice. And pay attention to that. And know you will repeat the same patterns in your life until you make peace with that voice and act on the thing that it is telling you to do.
Because it is speaking the truth. And the more you live out the truth, the same truth that's being spoken within you, that is when you will do the things that will expand your capacity for love. We already have the internal navigation system to get us to where we need to go throughout this lifetime, to have the experiences we're meant to have, to feel emotions we're meant to feel, to embody love, embody truth, embody God, embody the universe. All those words are the same thing. So to answer your question, I would say give yourself the gift of meditation. And understand that that meditation may lead to hard conversations and to make dramatic life choices. But that's what happens when we're living a lie and then we finally embrace the truth. Things are going to change. And I promise you it's going to be for the better. It's going to be for the best. The best for yourself and the best for everyone around you. When you increase capacity of love towards people you once hated and resented, you also increase the capacity for people that you already love. So if you believe you love your kids, love your wife, your husband, your mother, your father deeply, I promise you it can go deeper. A level of love that you didn't even know was possible. And that happens by shining light in areas that are currently dark.
Why is it so simple for us and hard for previous versions of us?
So simple for us, but so hard for previous versions of us. To be honest, the previous version of us was always analyzing the world around us to see what we needed, more importantly, who we needed to be to be loved.
Mm-hmm.
What the world around us does is it takes everything we already have from within and kind of holds it against our will and says, you need this car, you need this thing, you need this status, you need that, and then maybe you'll be worthy of love. When that's actually not the case. Everything you've ever wanted is already within you. You just have to uncover it. And so when I look at the past versions of myself, I look at a version of myself that was simply just more conditioned by the world around me to make me think that everything I've ever truly wanted, the foundation for all my motivation, the foundation for everything, the foundation for living is already within me. And so naturally over time, when I sit in meditation, when I listen to my intuition, I begin to learn more about the universe and learn more about our current 3D reality that we exist in 2024. And the truth, when the truth becomes evident, so do the lies, just naturally. And then beginning to learn that I do not need to participate in these lies because I know the truth, and the truth is right. The truth is love. And that within itself, over time, incrementally, has allowed me to become less conditioned by society, has allowed me to slowly learn that everything I could have ever wanted is already within, and has allowed me return to my center, my natural state of being, a being here to love.
What a beautiful podcast. Is there anything else you want to talk about or cover?
I think we spent the most time talking about the most important thing in the world. So, the one last thing I want to say is I grew up with a pretty severe speech impediment.
This is wild.
The phrase Sally sells seashells by the seashore felt like astrophysics to me. But the more I speak the truth, the more eloquently I speak. The more I eat foods that are aligned with what I genuinely believe is healthiest for me, what my intuition tells me to eat, the healthier I feel. When I treat people the way my intuition tells me to treat them, the more they like me, the more I like them. It's all the answers already within. And I'm very fortunate that recently, this past weekend, I've reached a point where I really feel like my intuition, like I said, is firmly in the driver's seat. And my intuition, being the voice of God, is allowing God to flow through me. So I'm still Cameron Hogan. I'm still the guy with the speech impediment and like has all the desires and everything, but I've decided to set that to the side and let God utilize me as the vessel or the pen that I am. And it's felt like I've signed this contract of, hey, I'm going to set aside my own personal desires to trust that you are going to utilize this life, this human being, to be a gift to the world. And so I'm going to spend the rest of my life serving others in whichever way I can. And in doing so, being of service to others and utilizing the gifts that I've had my entire life, but I've suppressed for so long, but now I'm deciding to utilize to the best of their ability. It has brought me all the peace, joy, and fulfillment life has to offer. And I know you have very similar, if not the same gifts. I know far majority of our audience has the same. And I encourage you just to do so. You're here to create. Humans are creators. We create our own reality. We create beautiful artwork. We create beautiful connections with other human beings. And we can create this world into whatever we want it to be. So let's make it something great.
Let us. Where should we send people to connect with you?
I'm very new to social media. This new profound state of being that I'm in is prompting me to become more on social media. So in the next handful of days, I'll be having all my content and all platforms be at the Cameron Hogan. You just follow me at that tagline: Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, all the above. I'm really looking forward to diving into what I love creating, which is writing in the form of weekly newsletters. I'll be making videos on YouTube very soon and then clipping those up for TikTok and Instagram, and just like everyone else is doing. But I'm going to do so in a way that's at my own pace and what feels most authentic to me. And my only goal here is to make sure that when I speak, it's coming through God, because I know it'll always be the truth. And I know it's exactly what the world needs to hear. That's why it's coming through me.
You're doing a great job of it, and have over the course of this podcast.
Thank you so much.
And I'm so grateful for your presence in my life and your ability to speak the truth so freely, so eloquently. And the very fact that something that traumatized you as a child or made you feel insecure, a speech impediment, is actually your greatest gift, is a beautiful, beautiful wink from God.
Yes.
Thank you so much, man.
Danny Miranda, I love you unconditionally, man. Truly.
Mm-hmm.
And to everyone listening, I love you all unconditionally. And I'm empowering you to do the same for yourself. Thank you for having me on, my brother. I really, really enjoyed this.
Of course. I love you too. I love the audience as well, anyone listening. And I love. Appreciate you, bro. You're a legend. Absolute legend. So bad and so good. It had to be bad.
It's all good. Still love you.
Yeah.
Don't worry.
Be well. All is well. Peace.
I love you. I love you. I love you. I love you. You'll be cool. Hey, King Pablo, if you get this, put this in like the end, if it like makes sense, like on YouTube, where we show like the up next video, you know what I'm saying? Like the view channel button, whatever. Put this in there. That'll be cool. Yeah. I don't know if Danny will approve of that, but I do. So I love you, Pablo.